Great, thank you. So my name is Megan Weiss, and I am going to be one of the senior judges of the session this evening. Well, this evening for me, I understand it's morning for many of you. I'm going to start by just going through some kind of introductory comments about how this session is going to work, and then we'll kind of go around and introduce you to the different judges that we have with us today, and then we'll get started. So in this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to all of us, the judges. Please, make sure at the beginning of your presentation that everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. So Joe Wilkins, who is my co-senior judge for this session, so he is going to be our timekeeper. So if you get to that 25-minute mark and you're still going, he's going to let us know that we need to kind of wrap things up. So during the 25 minutes, we're going to let you present uninterrupted. Once you have finished with your presentation, then the judges will get an opportunity to ask questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During that Q&A portion, both you and the judges should stay in character. So whatever role you've assigned us, we will be doing our best to ask questions, in that role. After the Q&A is over, then the judges will give you feedback outside of the role playing. So that'll be our opportunity to kind of give any advice or thoughts that we have on the presentation. So I think we're ready to get started. So with that, I'll just introduce myself briefly. So as I said, my name is Megan Weiss. I am an ethics director for Raytheon Technologies, which is an aerospace and defense company. I work out of our facility that is located in El Segundo, California, so very close to LMU. I will say we are having beautiful weather today, so I'm sorry we couldn't all get together and this in person, especially with that dinner that we're talking about. That would have been really nice. But anyway, so with that, I hand it over to Joe to introduce himself.
Thank you, Megan. Well done. Megan, just to introduce myself, I am a consultant, a healthcare consultant. I serve for a firm called TRG Healthcare, and I travel around the United States and quite a bit to try and work to improve healthcare. And so I live in Southern California and enjoy our community. So there you go, Joe Wilkins.
Great, thanks, Joe. And then let's go over to Renee, or if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Renee Santana. I am a CPA and work for a private company as the head of their corporate accounting and reporting divisions.
Okay, and then our fourth judge, Christine.
Hello, my name is Christine Machado. I work for CoreLogic, and I'm a senior quality manager, and we work particularly with valuations, residential appraisals.
Excellent. Okay, so unless there's any questions, I think we're ready to turn it over to the team and get started.
Okay, then please allow me to share my screen for the PowerPoint presentation. And I'll turn you over to Rochelle to give our introduction.
Good evening in LA and good morning from the Philippines. Yes. So, So good evening. We are the Credo Consulting Group, and let me introduce our team. So I am Rochelle. I will be discussing the background and the current situation in Masinloc, and then I will be turning over you to Russell and also Chelsea, who will be discussing the proposed solutions. And then we have JC and MJ, who will be the ones who will discuss the ethical, legal, and financial viability of this project. So we are grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you, fisherfolk of Masinloc, Philippines, and we would like to propose to you a business sustainability plan for your fishing community, given the challenges that you are facing in our community. The Earth is predominantly water. It makes up 71% of the world. The sea is a main source of food and livelihood of the human being. The sea has made possible trade, commerce, and global relations throughout history. And it has not just fed our species, it has sustained us and added color to our history. But no one really owns the sea in totality. No one seems to be directly accountable to it. Humans are free to exploit it to depth and wonders, which is why we fear one day this can haunt us and give us fishing villages with empty nets. And that's the title of this case. We believe the key to change that benefits our collective humanity is to be increasingly more sustainable in our relationship with the sea. Our presentation and proposal will shed light on how we can become more responsible in the sustainable use of marine resources. This is to ensure our livelihood today, as well as the livelihood of our children and their children in the future. So as introduced, the agenda will be as follows. We discuss the situation or the problem of sustaining small-scale fisheries, then finding solutions in ourselves and in our environment, and then analyzing the ethical, legal, and financial viability of our work together. Small-scale fisheries exist in almost every country, accounting for more than half of the total marine produce on average. Thus, the big impact. This is true for both their quantity and estimated value. The importance of these small-scale fisheries is such that most countries have developed certain targeted regulatory and institutional frameworks, allowing these fisheries access to the necessary resources, services, and markets. However, most of these are not strictly enforced. And an unfortunate example is Philippines, given its archipelago structure. It is the fourth largest coastal area in the world. And also, 60% of the population depend on the fisheries industry. Globally, there is a significant reduction in harvest. And since the 70s, overfishing is something most governments have started looking into, including the Philippine government. To dive in further, a point of interest is the scenario in Masinloc. So, this is a coastal municipality in the province of Zambales, Philippines, whose geographical territory includes that of Scarborough Shoal. This is an area whose economic importance is being highly contested by the Philippines and China. China claims that this is part of their territory since this is within the so-called 9-dash line. Returning to Masinloc, the condition of the coastal waters of the municipality is so conducive to marine life that it was designated a marine sanctuary by the Fidel V. Ramos during the 90s administration. Around 29% of its 50,000 population is almost entirely dependent on the marine resources available in Masinloc. Although this shows promise to fisheries in the Masinloc industry, poor fishing frameworks in such areas, which is also true in other areas of the Philippines and probably of the world, has the local community worried. So to visualize further, let us paint everyone a picture with a profile of Mang Cardo. Mang Cardo, like many Filipino families, is the breadwinner of a family of 5 who share the income of $200 a month. The challenge he faces is answering the question, how do I provide my family the right to a decent life? $82 a month is dedicated to food and $22 is for utilities. These fixed costs already eat up a lot of the budget. He also needs to allot $18 for transportation for the whole family's day-to-day life. With this, we only have $78 a month for the family to expend on expenses like education, health, maintenance, and other emergencies. These are the things he needs to account for as the father of the family. As a member of the fisher folk, he faces even more challenges. So there is a dwindling fish catch, a grave threat coming from overfishing, unsustainable fishing practices, and pollutants, And lives are also in danger as they are cast away from their own waters. Aside from the competition between commercial fish pens and the small-scale fisheries, like Mount Cardo, 3,000 fisherfolk families are caught between the territorial disputes between Philippines and China. The threats are serious and it calls for an immediate solution. For the discussion of our proposed solutions, I will turn you over to Russell.
Thank you, Rochelle. So as your consultants, our goal here is to help you. Our first proposal is to establish what we call Sea Change Cooperative. Sea Change is going to be an association of fisherfolk from Masinloc, whose primary objective is to put resources and work together in order to achieve a common ecologic, social, and financially viable goals. As a cooperative, the goal of Sea Change is to form 3 scalable businesses. This provides you to have easier access to financial resources, either through government grants or from international funding agencies. Sea Change incorporates ethical and sustainable practices to its core. Unlike traditional aquaculture, Sea Change is going to conduct a multi-trophic aquaculture system comprised of a milkfish farm, a seaweed farm, and an educational agritourism. Multi-trophic aquaculture may sound intimidating for most of you here. As mentioned earlier, part of the Sea Change goals is to equip you with the necessary skills to handle these projects efficiently by coordinating with other agencies who will provide vocational courses, continuous learning, and knowledge transfer. We will be conducting trainings to your community leaders first, then the officers of Sea Change will then conduct trainings to other members of the cooperative. So now let me briefly walk you through our first strategy. Our first strategy focuses on building milkfish farms. Since Masinloc is the closest municipality to the spot of territorial disputes with other countries, our goal is to minimize the danger of open access fishing and bring your livelihood closer to your homes. So in doing so, both the milkfish and seaweed farms will be placed close to the boundary between the towns of Palawig and Masinloc in Zambales, Philippines. Another goal of this farm is to select a site that will have minimal impact to the marine's ecosystem. We want to avoid what happened in the past, where previous construction of commercial fish pens in your town have destroyed mangroves in your area. Presently, all existing commercial fish farms in Masinloc are producing milkfish. The demand for milkfish is ever increasing. In 2018, the total consumption of milkfish in the Philippines grew by 8%, and the supply could not keep up with the demand. And this is important because the country hasn't fully maximized the potential of exporting milkfish to other countries. Sea Change Milkfish Farms aims to develop 12 hectares of marine fish cages in 3 years. From this, we expect to produce approximately 3 million kilograms of fish each year. So this 12-hectare farm can produce enough fish to feed 90,000 Filipinos based on their per capita level of annual fish consumption. We believe that the milkfish farm will be a great alternative livelihood for you, since many of you here in Masinloc are earning less than $200 a month. We know that this is not enough to support a family of 5. 1 hectare of milkfish farm in your community can benefit at least 20 fisher folk and can help increase your monthly income by as much as 80%. The 3-year target of Sea Change Milkfish Farm is to provide livelihood income to at least 240 fisher folk. This is an important step considering that there are around 500 fisher folk families in Masinloc who live below poverty level. Sea Change will manage a 4-hectare milkfish farm on its first year, and the estimated harvest in that year is about 980 metric tons. That generates a total net income of $728,000, enough to benefit 80 fisher folk. Our goal is to scale up our fish farms from 4 to 12 hectares in 3 years. And with this, we will increase participation from 80 to 240 fisher folk. More details on the financial aspects of this project. For now, here's Chelsea to explain the second project of our proposed cooperative.
Thank you, Russell. So based on site visits and interviews with you, the fisherfolk community of Masinloc, we've learned that your community has suffered through widespread fish kills. And according to research as well as local papers, a major contributor of this problem are fish cages, particularly the poor maintenance of fish waste and excess fish feed. So since we're all aware that waste is a major challenge for fish farms, the kind of aquaculture system that we're proposing to you today aims to make waste management an integrated and integral part of your business. So aside from the milkfish farm, the second component of our proposal is the establishment of a seaweed farm. So cultivating seaweed in an area adjacent to the milkfish farm can reduce the solid waste by up to 30%. Seaweeds also have clear economic benefits. So as a nod to our Bureau of Fisheries representative sitting in here today, let us consider data from the Philippine Rural Development Project. So according to that report, seaweed production in the country accounts for 60% of total aquaculture production. And that translates to around 1.8 million metric tons of seaweeds, valued at over $212 million each year. And the most popular variant of red seaweed is Capophycus alvarezi, and that accounts for 80% of the industry. So this variant is very popular for a reason. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, 80% of the world's total supply is sourced from the Philippines. Moreover, this variant and its derivative products also have properties that are highly valued in the industries of cosmetics and food processing. All in all, the commercial demand for red seaweed is expected to grow 10% year on year, showing that there is clear room for growth for your seaweed farm business. And the beauty of this proposal is that it requires very little starting capital to make it into reality. Masinloc already covers a lot of the natural requirements, such as adequate sunlight, good water temperature, and salt water movement. So it comes down to acquiring simple working requirements, such as nylon ropes, lines, and also drying racks. What's more, seaweed farms are also established in intertidal zones. This means that people can safely enter the area and work on the seaweed farms. So part of our proposal is to involve your families in the earning of income for your household. This is especially true for the maintenance required in the operating of the seaweed farm. To give more substance to our proposal, we're showing to you today a 3-year projection of the seaweed farm. So for the first year, we expect that your cooperative can operate the seaweed farm up to 4 hectares, and that will yield approximately 160 metric tons of harvest. And that is equivalent to $20,000 contribution to your net income. For the next 2 years, we expect your cooperative to expand its operations by adding members and also by adding coverage area. So in years 2 and 3, the increase is almost up to 90%. More details and a better breakdown of the financials will be discussed in our succeeding slides. But for now, let me turn you over to Jose Manuel for the discussion of our third alternative.
Thank you, Chelsea. Our third strategy for Sea Change Cooperative is to have an educational agritourism. Field trips have been proven to help bridge the gap between theories and hands-on learning. By showcasing your integrated multi-trophic aquaculture system, this strategy would connect you fisherfolk with your local community. Aside from the profits from this strategy, our main goal is to create awareness. By getting to know your livelihoods as the fisherfolk of Masinloc, tourists would have a greater sense of appreciation with why and how you are doing aquaculture. We believe that this forms an integral part in harmonizing the community. In partnership with the Department of Education, this will be incorporated to the annual field trips of 8th graders in the region of Zambales. Why 8th graders? Because they are taking biology as one of their classes. We are initially focusing on the students of the Zambales region in consideration of the travel time to get to your farms. These students belong to your community and they could be your future leaders, so their support is needed in the long run. I'll show you a run-through of the activities to be prepared. To start off, a short video would be played to educate the students about the territorial disputes of our waters. It would also give them an introduction of your fishing livelihood. This would give the next generation the needed awareness to fight for our waters and support your livelihood. Next would be a boat tour around the milkfish and seaweed farms, where the students would learn about the life cycles of milkfish and seaweeds. The integration of the two farms would show the students the environmental benefits of seaweeds to our waters. And lastly, a hands-on demo on the different products created from seaweeds, such as leather making and soap making, would be shown to the students. They would then be given lunch from the fresh bounty. We propose to start this initiative by targeting 20% of the Zambales 8th graders by year 1 and eventually increase it to 60% by year 3. In terms of net income contribution, we are forecasting a 40% compounded annual growth rate, which would give you $6,400 of income on year 1 and $19,300 on year 3. So now you've heard of the solutions that are commercially sound. And in order to ensure its sustainability, we've also assessed them in the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions. First is the legal. The first law relevant to this discussion is the Philippine Cooperative Code. With you as founders of Sea Change Cooperative, you could have better access to credit, suppliers, and market since you could negotiate as a whole, rather than you negotiating individually. Your economies of scale would give you the bargaining power needed. Furthermore, under this law, cooperatives shall have preferential treatment in the allocation of feeds and fishlings by the Bureau of Fisheries. This would actually give you free capital. Second law is the Philippine Fisheries Code. Our government recognizes the importance of the fishing industry, and they want you to have a sustainable livelihood. Currently, 60% of the fish catch comes from open access fishing, while 40% comes from aquaculture. With the declining fish catch, the government aims to increase the yield of aquaculture to a 50-50 percentage to reduce the harm of open access fishing. This initiative is coursed through the Bureau of Fisheries, which would train and educate you fisherfolk with the latest technologies in aquaculture. And lastly, for the third law, is the Farm Tourism Development. In 2018, the tourism industry contributed to 12.7% to the Philippine economy. Aside from our beautiful beaches, the government wants to push agritourism to showcase the economic and cultural value of agriculture to our country. To ensure the success of agritourism, the Farm Tourism Board is formed to help you have access to credit and market data. So all of these three laws would actually help you raise the capital needed to start Sea Change Cooperative. And now I would give you to Mary Joy to discuss on the financials.
Thank you, JC. I'm going to pick up on your discussion on funding. In terms of financials, the capitalization of $580,000 is required to implement the three strategies. A significant portion is attributed to the milkfish farm, which consists of equipment, fishlings, and a working capital for a 6-month cycle of feeds and labor cost. Seaweed farm and agritourism bear minimal cost, which covers simple materials such as nylon ropes and seedlings for seaweed, and a function hall and commercial boat for agritourism. Although this may seem like an intimidating amount at first, this could be raised through 3 credit sources. First is the government agency, which holds existing programs to give credit or loan to fisherfolk cooperatives. This would account to more than half of the capital requirement. Next is from Kiva, a global non-profit organization that gives financial access to underserved communities like Masinloc. The remaining capital through various crowdfunding platforms that connect investors to agricultural businesses. Here's the 3-year projection of income covering 3 strategies. Your collective yield opens access to local and international market. thus an increase in revenue, particularly in the milk fish sector. Factoring in loan amortization, taxes and fees, and co-op funds, which can be used as your cash reserve for personal loans and emergencies, the net income for year one is $350,000. This could go more than double by year two, or roughly around $900,000, and up to $1.4 million by year three. The return on investment is really fast for only 1.5 years. The number of beneficiaries is expected the first year. It would double to 160 the following year and up to 240 in year three. The most important output of this cooperative is the monthly income of each member, from belonging to the poverty index or earning less to 83% or equivalent to $100 or 150% increase by year three. Your stable and source of income would the cycle of having to borrow with horrendous rates, paying during harvest, and having to borrow again until none is left for your family. Ethical frameworks and human rights, to the vision and mission of your organization, the Bureau of Fisheries, and to the local government of Zambales. We also identified three main stakeholders who are mainly impacted by the manner of doing business. First is the fisher folk. We are inspired by the Bureau's mission to improve the fisher folks' quality of life, which support the right to a decent life, the right to live, and not just to survive. But we are challenged by the reality that they live below, particularly the fish farm, we and their families would have a stable source of income that would lift them out of poverty. Second is the environment. In principle, aquatic resources must be preserved and that people are privileged to use but not to abuse the environment. Yet the glooming reality is there is a lack of active participation to continually protect the seas. Overfishing and pollution result in dwindling fish catch. With the implementation of seaweed farm, we are anticipating a healthier marine life through responsible practices. Last but not the least stakeholder, the community. We echo your stand that for the community to prosper, there is a communal or societal duty to support the interests of the marginalized. However, the fisher folk community is cast out from their own waters as a result of international dispute, and they're in competition with commercial fish pens. Once the young, the leaders of tomorrow are educated and involved, awareness of local situations is increased, and they become more empowered to protect nature. Again, the tripartite solution for the three pressing problems of your community must unlock Zambales. Essentially, these solutions address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, life underwater, or to conserve and sustainably use marine resources while providing access to small-scale fisher folk. From Credo Consulting, it has been a pleasure to be part of this solution. Thank you.
Excellent, great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think we're gonna now open it up for some questions from the judges. So let me start with Renee. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask the team here?
I did, because I'm looking at the scaling from year one to year two, and obviously that will come with a great deal of some challenges. Are there some specific challenges that your team has identified that would help us be successful there?
Yes, as mentioned in our financial analysis, one of the major challenges of operating this fish farm and all of the alternatives that we've mentioned is the garnering of capital. And aside from that, another major challenge is, of course, integrating the local community to the solution. So we've tried to address this by offering them training programs and capacity building opportunities so that even they will feel empowered to take on the responsibility of managing the three alternatives.
With respect to the legal aspect, actually, the Philippine Fisheries Code supports cooperatives such as the proposed Sea Change Cooperative, since it wants to push for the municipal fisher folk to have aquaculture. So rather than prioritizing commercial fish pens, the Fisheries Code indicate that the municipality should encourage and should prioritize their own municipal fisher folk. So this actually supports, this law supports our initiative.
Okay, Renee, any follow-up question or should I move on?
I don't have any at this point. Thank you.
Okay, great. Christine, what would you like to ask the group?
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. I did have one question, and this is in regards to the seaweed and how you indicated it would help reduce the waste of the milkfish. I wasn't exactly sure how that occurs, and you also indicated it would be a 30% benefit, but is 30% enough?
Hello, yes. So we've conducted research about this and also consulted third-party researchers about the effectivity of seaweed. And according to them, a lot of factors come into play for this. So one is the placement of the seaweed farm in an adjacent area to the milkfish farm. So factoring in the currents and the patterns of the water, you need to place the seaweed farm in an area that would effectively filter any fish waste that comes from the seaweed farm, that comes from the milkfish farm, sorry. And aside from the natural ability of the ocean to disperse that waste, the seaweed farm will help adequately cover much of the excess fish feed and fish waste that comes from the fish farm. So that reduction is also based on researches done in Indonesia and as well as in, I believe, China, who also implement these kinds of strategies in their fish farms. So this integrated strategy is actually being implemented in other countries. So the nice thing about this is we've had some basis for recommending this to your community as well. And aside from that, I think yes, that's my take on the seaweed farm.
Great, thank you. And the photo that indicated the dying fish on the shore, was that from the milkfish, a similar type farm that maybe didn't have seaweed?
Just to add
Yes,
to what
that's
Chelsea,
sorry.
just to add to what Chelsea has said, we know that milkfish produce a lot of wastes, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus. And I think what is dangerous here is that not only the sediment waste, but also this waste can actually sequester oxygen from the marine ecosystem. So the idea is when we put seaweeds there in the sea, that also produces oxygen for the fish, which can prevent massive fish kills in the area. So we saw a lot of farms in the Philippines who had a lot of fish kills. And I think one reason why that happened, because there's a lack of seaweeds in that area, or they didn't have this intervention to minimize the lack of oxygen in the sea.
Great, thank you. Okay, Joe, I'm going to come over to you and see what questions you have for the group.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Love the presentation and the flow and the crispness of the slides. So really, really good job. My question has to do with there was a mention and somewhere in a presentation around interviews or survey of the community that occurred. And as a member, of the local community board here, I really want to understand how would this proposal sit with the actual people, particularly the independent small farmer. I understand they're challenged from a income perspective, but I do want to sort of get a sense for what work have you done to make sure that this will be supported by the, the everyday person that's engaged in this work today for a livelihood.
So we've mentioned.
Okay, go Chelsea.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So when we went to Masinloc, so our group went there, and we did some interviews with some local fisher folk.
Mm-hmm.
And the main problems we saw was first, some were actually doing dynamite fishing or cyanide fishing, but that is done during the wee hours of the night. So we don't actually have data on that. That's why we didn't use that. And some actually go to the Scarborough Shoal, which is very rich with marine resources. But that is the contested waters that we are talking about. Most often than not, there are Chinese coast guards over there. So the main problem of the fisher folk is that they don't have much fish to catch. So by bringing up this solution, they're kind of happy because we want to bring them closer to home, as we've said. So they don't need to do illegal things, and they don't have to risk their lives going farther into the sea. So they are very receptive of this.
Okay. And Megan, can I get a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Joe.
So the other question, again, as I sit here as part of the local government, you mentioned some principles, and unfortunately, when I heard that, my system was a little garbled and I didn't hear that clearly. But you mentioned 3 principles, and I didn't know if those principles that you discussed is that part of my duty as part of the government. Can you first of all remind us briefly what those 3 principles were? And is that my duty and responsibility to fulfill those principles, or is that part of something else?
Here, so let me please principle. We went back to the vision and mission of the organizations. First, the Bureau of Fisheries and the local government of Zambales.
Okay.
These principles are stated in their very articles, and that we believe that it could be a guiding principle for us to determine what could the cooperative expect as a sign of support and protection to this community.
Okay, right.
And to add to that, I believe that the primary goal here, since we're talking to you, the fisherfolk community, and also the LGUs, we want to win your trust, not as outsiders, but through the membership in your community. So that's why we also factored in the guiding principles based on your visions and missions. And that's what we used in trying to reach out to you and win your trust.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. So, I was excited when you talked about the opportunity to bring, the 8th graders in for field trips and kind of educate them on what we hope to be doing here. I saw on one of the slides you had also mentioned tourism, which made me think that there was kind of other ideas you had about bringing more people in. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about some of those other ideas.
Well, for educational agritourism, we're initially focusing on the students because this is a captured market. So when we talk to schools, we get lots of students already, and this agritourism would be actually open for other tourists. But with regards to the projections and for the agritourism, it's quite we have no data for that. We can't project it with enough basis, so we didn't include the number of tourists who would want to go to the farm. But the agritourism is certainly open for tourists, both for local and international guests. But We just focus on the numbers of the students because we could have a basis for that.
Great.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me please add. Yeah. So aside from the students, the scale would be feasible in terms of local international visitors. Masinloc has these rich beaches, so it would actually attract them, and then we pull them to visit the community where fisher folk are actually working. So it's like a tour on the livelihood, and at the same time a visit to the sandbar, which is just close by. Mm-hmm.
So that's great. I like to hear that the financial analysis that you've shown is based on kind of the concrete estimate of the 8th grade field trips, and it sounds like there's opportunity for even more upside, which would be the additional tourism. Is that correct? Great.
Yes, that's correct. You got it correctly.
Okay, good, great. One other question, and then I want to circle back to and see if any of the other judges have any follow-up questions. One of the slides, I think it was on the seaweed farms, talked about the opportunity for household involvement. And I was just kind of, I don't know that got fleshed out, so I'm just kind of curious, what you meant by that term.
Okay, so in maintaining the seaweed farm, you need to go into the farms themselves and look for starfish and sea urchins that are in the way of the growth of the seaweed. So part of the maintenance is also making sure those things aren't in the way of the seaweed. So women and children and other members of the household can easily come into the seaweed farm area and maintain those lines. Also, you need to make sure that the seaweeds are adequately tied to the nylon ropes as they are floating in those ropes. So part of the maintenance is making sure that those are in place and they won't float out of the lines that you have created. So that's why in maintaining the seaweed farm, it's a whole household initiative. So anyone in your household can actually wade into the seaweed farm area and make sure that those are maintained well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Christine or Renee, do either of you have any other questions at this point? No? Okay. Joe, one last time, any questions from you?
Yeah, just one more. And I'm just again extremely excited about the presentation, and it sounds like those 3 strategies are pretty innovative. And I kind of remember years past that we've tried some of these in the past, and maybe not all together, not in a solid, wonderful, concise presentation that you put together, but piece by piece, we tried some of these things and we didn't see success. What's different this time? What would you think? What would be the difference this time in terms of it being successful?
So other initiatives have started with the aquaculture aspect. So milkfish farms, it's being done, but they have failed to incorporate the other 2 strategies, such as the seaweed farm and also the agritourism aspect. So we made sure that we included those aspects so that it's an integrated solution for you and to make it a sustainable solution as well. Because if you only concentrate on the milkfish farm, that will give you a lot of income for sure, but it also causes a lot of damage. And we want to make sure that those aspects and those risks that come from that damage is mitigated. That's why we've incorporated the environmental aspect as well as the future leaders aspect, so that not only your generation would benefit, but also the future generations in your community, because we want this to be a workable solution, not just for you, but also if it becomes successful, and we believe that it will be, we want to inspire other communities to adopt the same kind of integrated solution and make this a workable business for many small-scale fisheries in the country, because their concerns, your concerns, are of utmost importance, and we want to make sure that it's heard and your voices are always in our minds and in our forefront of our situations. Yes.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, if there's no other questions, then I think we can conclude the question and answer portion. So everyone, you know, you can sigh of relief, right? So you're off the hot seat.
Yeah.
So I'll just start by saying, gosh, was very impressed by your presentation. I thought that you did an excellent job. Your charts were, I'll say, beautiful. I mean, just the visuals that you had put together were really nice. I didn't find them distracting. I thought they told a really nice story. And the other thing that jumped out to me, we'll just continue on the slides, your transitions were very smooth. I mean, one of the prior presenters had talked about how some teams it was a little bit clunky and okay, let's change the slide. It was so smooth I almost didn't notice as you were kind of moving through your presentation. So that was really nicely done. And then the other thing is I really appreciated how you were aware of your audience. I thought it was clear that you kind of knew who you were going to be talking to, had done, you know, your surveys to get input from people. You talked about not only that you were talking to the fisher folk, but that you had someone here from the Bureau of Fisheries. So just a really nice awareness of who it is that you're talking to. So really impressed. I thought you did a really great job. I'll say we had a little bit of technical issues. I think with MJ, some of your presentation seemed, at least on my end, it was freezing a little bit. But I think we were able to get, you know, not your fault, but I think we were able to get what we needed, and just really great job. So with that, I'll see. Joe, do you want to kind of give your thoughts?
Yeah, Megan, I think you nailed it. It's really, really good job, particularly in preparing for the presentation. You can tell that you've invested well in terms of your format and your layout. Your visuals, your graphics were perfect. You know, the tone of the challenge was very descriptive. I particularly liked creative thought around just the solution called sea change cooperative, just that has so many connotations, right? So that was very powerful to me, and I think that that at the end of the day, I think as a result of that, this is gonna, you know, I can see this actually happen. So really good. I also thought that that the way you weaved in the ethical piece of it as well through the principles, and then the financials, how you rolled up to the different strategies, the actual outcome if you were to implement what the actual result would be, and then you laid out at the end the actual cost and the net income of everything being involved. And so I thought that was done smoothly and effectively. So all in all, great job, wonderful presentation skills, very persuasive, and a subject that's kind of unknown to me, at least. I fully now can understand the challenges, and hope that something like this as a cooperative could actually come to life. So thank you so much.
Is it okay if I add something to that?
Yes, please go ahead, Christine.
So one of the things I just wanted to compliment you guys on is two things. First, Megan, love your kids. And with you guys, when I started writing down some questions as they go, and typically I like to see if you're going to be able to answer them. But as I was writing the questions, you were delivering the answer to me. So it was a really, really nicely how you put the order. It was very good. And so I thought you did a really fantastic job there. And then also, MJ, just so you know, it was garbled, but I found that the slides were perfect because I could follow you anyways, because the information on the slides was really good. So thank you.
Okay, Renee, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll echo what Christine said. I was doing the same thing, kind of writing some questions down as you were going, and then I was finding myself crossing them off because you were answering the question that came to me. So that's something I always appreciate, and something that you don't often get sometimes during presentations. I think one of the other things that I found most beneficial of your slides is they weren't overwhelming. Sometimes there's a tendency to put too much information, and it's very overwhelming as a participant too. You feel like you need to read everything on the presentation. You kept it very minimalistic, but very succinct. And you used your verbal skills to talk to us instead of us relying on only the slides. And so very, very powerful presentation. I found it to be very enjoyable to be a participant of. And I like the way you weaved in the sustainability and the ethics the ethics of the issue, the overfishing and the issues with the, water pollution and other things that are going on. And you kind of hit all those different buckets. So very well done.
Yeah, great. No, I think we've hit it all. I'm trying to think of some specific, constructive feedback. Gosh, I'm kind of coming up blank. Maybe this is the end of the day, and I've obviously got company here now. I
mean, to that point, Megan, I mean, one of the things I was thinking of is if I'm earning $200 as a household, the amount of the buy-in that went up was a little shocking, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm thinking, okay, I have this much, and now you want me to put in this other exorbitant sum, and you came up with ways that makes that a doable option, and the cooperative and bringing the community and group involvement together. But initially, you're thinking, I have $200, and now you want me to throw in 200,000. It's a big divide there.
Yeah. No, I agree, Renee. That was probably the thing that I was trying to wrap my head around and put myself into that scenario of, just trying to get through one day at a time, and then now wrapping my head around how do I go raise that much money and get this thing started. But hey, again, I thought you broke it down really nicely. So just great job. Joe, anything else you want to add?
Sure. Yeah, one other thing, on the same line of thinking there as well, I felt like you really started painting the picture with the family, McCardo, I believe his name was, in terms of describing his situation. And then, it might have been ideal towards the end of the presentation to bring him back in and take another look at the family and include the family. Obviously, their income is better. The family is even part of the solution. Everyone's participating and active in the work as a family. Maybe is a touch, because you seem to allude that was a possibility as well. And just show some brighter surroundings as a result of that 3 years out would be, I think, a wonderful conclusion to put the continued human face story even to the conclusion might be a thought for the future.
Great. Well, I think we're good unless anyone has any other comments or questions at this point. I know Chari has some kind of final comments, but I'll just say I want to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to participate in this. I really enjoyed it. This is the fourth presentation I've done today, and it was a really good one to end on, I have to say. So excellent job, and well done.